Will Czechia have a neo-Nazi in government? Hell, yeah, you may think that I've gone crazy, but it really is an option, bear with me. An open admirer of the Third Reich who kind of looks like he grew up there as well, and who likes to give the Nazi salute on a good day, could, well, make or break the future Czech government. Let's unpack this. I'm Jan and this is Progpulse. As you know if you watch this channel, Andrej Babiš won the 2025 election in Czechia by a landslide. He secured an impressive 35% of the vote, which is one of the highest wins the country has ever seen. But in a proportional system, such as in Czechia, winning isn't enough. See, you need a parliamentary majority, in Czechia's case that's over 100 seats in the lower chamber of parliament, to actually be able to govern. And the problem for Babiš is that he simply doesn't have that majority. Now enter a party called the Motorists for themselves, and their star politician, seen here, Filip Turek. He is the man with a peculiar fascination with Nazi Germany, and his ego is apparently bigger than Hitler's Volkshalle would have been. Now, the Motorists didn't start as a serious political force, actually. Rather, they began as a local satirical party in Prague, intended for mainly angry drivers who campaigned on a single issue. They were a single issue movement, mainly protesting bicycle lanes and any sort of environmental regulation. I mean, it makes sense, right? Prague is a city renowned for its stellar cycling infrastructure. It boasts an absolutely massive network of, bear with me, 250 kilometers of protected bicycle roads, which is a shocking 7% of the over 3,500 kilometers of roads for cars. So naturally, it is the car drivers and not the cyclists who need protections in the Czech capital. Makes sense. Anyway, the Motorists have been founded and financed by the Institute of former Czech President Václav Klaus, famous mainly for stealing pence on high-level state visits. And as is usual these days, the party claims, of course, to be anti-establishment and anti-elites. The only slight problem with that is that the main sponsor of the institute that basically created the party is a guy called Pavel Tykač, the fourth wealthiest Czech, who coincidentally owns Czechia's largest coal mines and so is responsible for most of Czechia's air pollution. The other big sponsor of the party, Richard Chlad, is your typical oligarch cool in Eastern Europe. He got rich off of the gambling industry, so, clean business, no problem with that, right? So the Motorists are basically yet another anti-establishment party that is basically just a puppet of billionaires who, coincidentally, got rich thanks to the very establishment itself. Given this background, it is no wonder that they preach a mix of national conservatism and hard Euroscepticism. And of course, they are strictly against anything seen just a tiny bit green, and they of course deny the science that unequivocally proves that humans are the ones responsible for most of climate change that we've been seeing. Anyway, what do you think about the rise of the Motorists in Czechia? Let me know in the comments down below. Now let's get back to Filip Turek himself. Now, he built his public persona around being a car collector and reportedly a Formula racing driver. With numerous photos alongside very expensive vehicles, he cultivated an aura of mystery around himself, even claiming that he has to hide his vast collection of cars in undisclosed locations all around the country to protect them from jealous people and, make sure that they don't get stolen or whatever. He even wrote a book about himself even before entering politics, and the book is called The Angular Legend, seen here. His Instagram handle reads Filip Turek for President. Now, this crafted image made him a male role model, as sociologists confirm, for an underserved audience. Young male voters who didn't have anyone to turn to, who live predominantly in smaller towns. He's sort of your Andrew Tate for those who see the Green Deal as the biggest threat, much bigger than fascism, for example. When you think about it, it actually makes a twisted kind of sense. Who wouldn't want to be a successful, very Germanic-looking racing driver, so rich that he has to hide his collection of cars from the public? Unsurprisingly, in the 2024 European Parliament election, Turek, who entered politics and ran for the Motorists, skyrocketed into Brussels with the second highest number of preferential votes out of all politicians who ran in the election. And back in 2024, that's exactly where his carefully crafted persona actually began to crack. His stellar racing career? He was no professional Formula driver, actually. Out of 27 races in which he participated, he won 12. Sounds kind of okay, right? But 4 of those 12 wins were against No one. You heard me. He was the only one in the race, so his only achievement was that he actually completed said race, and it counts as a win. 6 other races of those 12 were against one other racer, so I guess, he beat one person, congratulations, and only twice did he beat 2 other racers, one of whom was a 15-year-old and the other was a German professional medical doctor. So, not great for someone who would like us to believe that he is basically the Czech Lewis Hamilton or whatever. But that's by far not the worst part about him. Ahead of the 2024 EP election, a picture surfaced on his own social media that clearly shows him giving the Nazi salute. In the comments of that post, Turek also later liked a picture of Hitler. So it was supposed to be a funny meme, I guess. And at the time, the Motorists party leader, seen here, dismissed this whole thing as a weird sense of humor that Turek reportedly has, and he said that he was merely misunderstood by liberal Twitter. Apparently there is a liberal Twitter somewhere. I don't know how to find it. Let me know in the comments if you do know. And that picture of his racing helmet, well, what you see here on the helmet is actually the emblem of an elite Nazi air fighter unit. And that one you've seen before is actually the logo of the Greek neo-Nazi party, the Golden Dawn, that is now banned for precisely being openly neo-Nazi. So the Greek authorities banned the party. But I guess don't be harsh on him. It all may be a coincidence, right? Now, fast forward to today. Turek later left the EP to run in the Czech general election that happened at the beginning of October. And he's actually made it quite clear that if his party does enter the parliament, they want to govern, and preferably with Andrej Babiš and his ANO party. And also that he would like to be Minister of Foreign Affairs in the new government. Him being foreign minister would certainly go down well in a state visit to, say, Germany or Israel. In October 2025, as you know if you watch Prague Pulse, the Motorists actually did make it into the Czech parliament, just as coalition talks with ANO began, and they had quite a decent chance of actually forming the government with ANO. The Czech newspaper Deník N published a meticulously collected archive of Turek's deleted social media life, a various collection of posts and comments that went all the way back to 2013. And the contents of the archive are interesting, to say the very least. For example, he called Adolf Hitler a daddy and wrote about always filling his car with exactly 88 liters of fuel. I guess still his very good sense of humor, right? But perhaps much more likely a clear neo-Nazi reference where 88 stands for, you know what. There are also more pictures of him performing the Nazi salute, calling himself the Führer, and referring to Hitler's Eagle's Nest as the most romantic place in Europe. I guess, yeah, Paris can go fuck itself. Anyway, we've clearly established that he is an admirer of Hitler. He makes no secret out of that. And so it's probably not surprising to you at this point that he is also a racist. Perhaps the best example of this is 2009, when neo-Nazis unfortunately attacked a Romani family's home in the Czech town of Vítkov, and they burnt it to the ground simply because the family happened to be Romani. A 2-year-old girl was seriously wounded with burns over 80% of her body. Turek called the fact that she was Romani a mitigating circumstance on his social media. Yeah. About Barack Obama, he called him the N-word who can only sell hashish at the train station. I mean, this isn't edgy humor. This is monstrous and should be punishable. In spite of all of this, this guy still wants to be Czech foreign minister. But the worst part about this all? This wasn't a secret. The warning signs were literally everywhere, and some of the posts were publicly available on his own social media even after the journalists dug them up. That means that Turek wasn't even clever or, good enough to delete them all. Most of them were still there when we all started talking about it. And of course, even though they were still there, he denies writing them and calls it an attempt by the liberal media to change the election result. Yeah, a classic Trumpian move, I guess. And this brings us to today and the political math that makes this all so dangerous for Andrej Babiš. See, Andrej Babiš is not stupid. He knows that Turek cannot be minister for basically anything given what happened. He knows that he cannot be in the lead of a government whose international face is a man who allegedly calls Hitler daddy. But he also needs the motorists for his majority. As I said, without them, he simply won't reach the 100 seats that he needs. So instead, he's stalling. He's openly saying to the media that Turek has several weeks to clear his name. Well, we all know that this simply won't happen because first, the investigations will take much longer, and second, he cannot clear his name because he did write those things. And Babiš knows that as well. So the most likely outcome is a backroom deal where the motorists save face by nominating someone else for the cabinet, while Filip Turek remains a loud and powerful MP. Perhaps they could make him a deputy speaker of the House to shut him up. So to answer our title, no. It is unlikely that a neo-Nazi will be Czechia's next foreign minister, but if anything, this scandal shows just how normalized this toxic far-right quote-unquote humor has become. Turek may not make it into the ministry, but he has made it into parliament quite convincingly. Remember, he's got the second highest number of preferential votes, and the scandal may have even improved his image in the eyes of some of his avid supporters. And that alone is a stark warning for Czech democracy and for Europe in general. Let's see what happens. We'll be definitely following the developments. I'm Jan, and this has been Prague Pulse.